Hi there guys, welcome back to the channel. Those of you familiar with this Land Rover, you'll kind of know a little bit of the story, the problems I've been having with it. I've had overheating issues, I've had starting issues, general power issues and things like that. But obviously I've explained that within previous videos. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you go and watch those ones. They're on the page. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. It's really helping. The number is going up. The subscriber number, so I really do appreciate everyone that watches the videos, and of course some of you will be familiar with this one, and I'm very pleased to say that it is finally there. It's actually a functioning Land Rover. It's actually a very good functioning Land Rover Defender, with plenty of power and a few upgrades and things which I'm going to go through on this video. So we'll take for a drive and I'll kind of get into it with you. Hasn't been started for a couple of days, so okie dokie. Right, so the fact that it now starts when I turn the key without cranking and cranking forever is a relatively new repair, a new fix, and it was a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. So again, in my previous video I was underneath this seat because it was all to do with the wiring and relays underneath here. But even then I was having difficulty, so I actually took it to a chap based over in Bovey Tracy, which is about 15 minutes away from where I am, maybe 20 minutes. And he's a bit of a wizard with ECUs and electronics and things like that. I knew it had to be something relatively straightforward, not necessarily relatively cheap, but something relatively straightforward. And I kept thinking in my mind, it's definitely something to do with the ECU. There was a bit of a telltale sign, and that was that when I had the key in and the ignition on, the glow plug light wasn't illuminating. So you crank and crank and crank, but there's never a glow plug light on. The odd time that you would turn it on and the glow plug light was illuminated, after a few cranks it would eventually start. So then I was thinking, well, something's not telling something about the procedure of me wanting to start, and it's all to do with the relay underneath this seat. There's one that goes to the ECU, with power distributions and whatnot, and then obviously the ECU itself. So I thought, well, I'll take it to a chap who works on these ECUs quite often. He even has tester ECUs that he can put into the truck, and if it starts with that one, then we're kind of onto a bit of a winner as to what that is. So dropped it over to him, left it with him. I was anticipating on leaving it with him for a little while, as I do whenever anything comes up on this. I think, right, well, that's that gone for the week, if you like, whilst I try and figure out what that is. But he had it for a day, and he rang me up afterwards, and yeah, it was to do with the ECU, but fortunately it wasn't necessarily an ECU replacement, which is good news. I think what had happened, because obviously we had this one in to have a complete new engine put in, or a recon engine put in, it had been sat for a little minute or two. And I think there's quite a bit of condensation because we've had the worst weather in the UK. Just the winter's just been non-stop since November. I don't think it's stopped raining. I think this is the first week in quite a while. I'm actually anticipating a bit of sunshine, and we're in the middle of April, just to give some context of time. So I think it was just sat in a yard down at the workshops that I use. Condensation getting through, you know, I had to wipe through the car quite often and whatnot, which I wasn't neglected whilst it was down there, but it was just a very damp period of time, which of course I think has then got into the electrics of the car. So the ECU pins, the actual connector pins, were kind of all a bit green and manky. So he cleaned them all up for me, and then, I mean, obviously I could have checked that myself. I didn't really think to check it myself, but he kind of knows what to look for. So cleaned up the pins. I think he's actually replaced two of the ones on the connector going to the actual ECU, not on the ECU side. So he checked all the wiring through on that, and then whilst he had it, he drove it and noticed there was a bit of a, well, what he called flat spots in the power, and that's exactly what they are. They're just flat spots. So you get to about 1500 revs, which I'm actually sitting at now, and it would just be lazy. It wouldn't die or anything like that. It would just be like, well, there's no get up and go there. So he says, I've noticed a few flat spots on your rev range, nothing to do with the engine or anything like that. It's all pretty much to do with the communications of the ECU telling it to, you know, throttle actuators and turbos and things like that, which you like like me to have a look at it? And I said, well, yeah, because I've been anticipating on getting it remapped anyway. I can do it. He says, perfect, excellent. If it's with you, do the remap. So they're standard on the Puma engines. They're 122 brake horsepower. He doesn't have a dyno, but he has remapped it, and he reckons that when he's done it previously, there's never inaccurate. It's only individual to every car, depending on how it takes it and everything like that. But he reckons it's probably going to be around 160, 170, which for a Defender, I know in today's world, 160, 170, you can get that in little Seats and Fords and whatnot, but for these type of Defenders, that's pretty good going. It's not so bad at all. So I was very pleased that he was able to do that, and he says, I've taken it for a drive, all good. He's also regassed the aircon whilst he had it, because of course, having all of the engine, well, a complete engine out and a complete engine in job, you're going to lose all of your gases and everything like that. And I thought, well, I want to run it for a minute or two just to make sure that we've got nothing more to do with, you know, taking the engine out or anything like that, because otherwise I'll just be wasting aircon gas every time I do it. So whilst he had it, regassed the aircon as well. And so as I say, he's managed to solve the starting issue, which then also turned into an ECU remap, which did the power, and then also did the aircon regas. So now, after all the work that I've had done, as I say, I've previously mentioned it in previous videos, but it's had a whole recon engine fitted, upgraded intercooler, which allowed for more of a remap process to happen, because it's a bigger intercooler with bigger pipes, allowing more flow and cooling and everything like that. Different thermostat. Obviously this thermostat opens at 82 degrees Celsius rather than the standard at 87, so I have noticed that the warm air just isn't as warm as it used to be. I don't mind it so much. I'm not someone who absolutely has to have warm air all the time, unlike my other half Sophie, always got to be hot. So yeah, I quite like the fact that it's cooler, and the aircon is now ice cold. Obviously had the transfer case rebuilt, half shaft replaced at the back, diff seals and everything like that. But now it drives almost as if it was an ordinary car, and I know that's a weird sentence to say because you are in a car, but those of you that drive Land Rover Defenders will know what I mean. A Defender is a very different drive to a car. It's almost hard work. This is so much easier now. I'm in 6th gear, going up a hill, throttle barely pressed, and I'm really not having to worry about it. I'm not having to change down or anything like that. It's just pulling itself along. So that remap, I think, even though it being a very small part of the whole procedure that this truck has given it almost like a whole new characteristic, a whole new kind of life as a Defender. So very, very pleased with how it drives. I love driving this thing. It's definitely got a characteristic. It's still slow, albeit a much better drive than it used to be, with no flat spots or anything like that. It's still a bit clunky. It's still noisy in the cabin. But again, if you drive one of these, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you don't drive one of these, try and drive one of these and you'll kind of get it. The amount of people that say, oh, you know, I first got a Defender, it wasn't what I was expecting or anything like that. But you grow to love these cars. You grow to find kind of like get a bond with them. There's that very, very famous saying that Clarkson says, you know, all about having some people find that it's just metal and rubber and glass and things like that, but they're not. They are a personality, or part of your personality when you get to know them and things like this. And I truly believe it. You know, I've got no warning lights on the dash, and I've got a temperature sensor that's now steady, sits in the middle, starts every time for me. Everything is now behaving the way that it should have when I first picked it up. I wasn't expecting a whole rigmarole of jobs that needed to be done, and the expenses of the jobs. I've been through the list of what's been carried out on this truck. I'm almost scared to say it out loud, but later in this video I will be going through the itemised list of what I'm sure I'm missing some stuff, but the itemised list of what's been put on this truck, the cost of it, and then also the labour on top to get it to this mechanical state now. But I can quite comfortably say, as far as a Puma Defender goes, I would think that this is maybe one of the better ones on the road. I know that's a very bold statement to say, but I think when I've been through this list, you'll kind of understand as to why. But it's a lovely sunny day. I'm driving through country lanes, and I don't think I'd want to be in any other car right now. there are a lot of people that love to have Porsches and sports cars, and I like all of those cars all together, but there's just something about this truck, don't know what it is, just love it, just love being in it, love sitting with it, and just it's a joy to drive now that I've had everything done, and I'm not thinking, oh God, like, you know, it's giving me nightmares and I'm scared. I love driving it. I think it's brilliant. I do, and in a way I'll be sad to say goodbye to it. Never did I think I'd be going this early on into my ownership, but there is a reason as to why, and it will be revealed very soon. But we'll get back to the showroom and I'll go through the itemised list of what's been put on this truck, and you can make up your mind for yourselves as to whether it was a good investment or not so good investment. But I'll see you in a second. Here he is. Hey buddy. Hey boys. Hello boys. Hello. Hello. Alright, so you're joining me in the showroom. I thought I needed the comfort of my dogs to go through this eye-watering list of what I've spent on this Defender. So we'll kind of start from the start of when I first got it, really. So pretty soon after, there was obviously a nasty whine coming from the gearbox. Every time we went into a gear, nasty whine, clutch in, noise goes away. That ended up being the transfer case, so needed a rebuild kit for that. That was £132. At the same time, upgraded the half shafts at the rear for the pair. It was £114.95. Had a rear diff seal, that was 50 quid. Prop shaft UJs, that was 90 quid. From then, drove it for a little bit. Obviously, still getting the overheating problem, not necessarily realising the extent of what that issue was. So back into the workshops again. This time had a Recon engine, which I paid £2,300 for, plus the VAT, so that's £2,760. The reason I went for that particular one, it was a locally supplied engine. It came with a really good warranty for 12 months, and just thought, well, for peace of mind, I'll go for that. Had a second-hand exhaust manifold, as the one that was on the old engine was a little bit ropey. That was only 58 quid. Brand new EGR cooler, went for a branded one at 245. Intercooler, but again, that was an upgraded one. There was nothing wrong with the old one, but I wanted to upgrade it because then I could have done the remap like I have. But that intercooler was £390. New radiator, £144. Temperature sensor, 33 quid. Also got some nice blue Terra Firma hoses with the intercooler for 20 quid. And then I had other hoses as well, just, you know, general radiator hoses and things like that. They were 90. Various different gaskets came to about 80. The injector seals, got all of them done at 46. And then for a lot of consumables, so nuts, bolts and brackets and things like that, you're looking at another couple hundred quid. Aircon regas, that was only 65 quid. Had the engine remap, that was 300 quid. Brand new side steps, so the rest is a bit more cosmetic, so to speak, but had brand new side steps at £170. The rear door guard, which is quite cool, that was 75. And then I had a nice custom made centre cubby, that was only 46 quid. So the last three there were kind of cosmetics. So the parts totals, hello Eddie, right on cue. The parts totaled was £5,108.95, and I'm pretty sure I'm missing some parts off that list as well. And then the labour, I've worked it out roughly, it's about 2,300 quid, which for the amount of work has had done, it is actually very reasonable. He's looked after me there, but then obviously I use him all the time for other cars, and he's been doing it in between jobs, etc., etc. But it's an eye-watering £7,368.95. I'm sure I'm missing things off that, but I think if I actually found those missing things, it would only make me cry. So I'm going to keep it at that figure there. The truck really is, I've already mentioned, I think one of the best Puma trucks out there. With everything that's been done, it drives fantastic. And I don't think it would need anything kind of substantial anytime soon, because it's all kind of been done, really. Also had it serviced since obviously having the new engine put in, because obviously you want to make sure that the oil is as fresh as can be, especially after you've had a load of kind of entry points for dirt and dust and everything. So that's all been done. It's a cracking truck. It's got all the upgrades that I personally would choose. I love the alloys. I love the big wheels. It's a fantastic colour. It really is. But yeah, that one is now up for sale, which I am genuinely sad about because I've really enjoyed driving that truck. But needed something else, needed something a little bit more practical. Always said I'd be in a Defender since having that one, and technically I am. But you'll have to find out what that is. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. As I say, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really is helping. The numbers are growing and I really do appreciate it. And looking forward to bringing you more content. Thanks very much.